Hi, and welcome back. It's been a while since I've posted a video. I've been traveling with my brief summer vacation, so I spent some time in the U.S. and doing a visa run in Hong Kong, which I may talk about as well in my series on working in China. But I thought this would be a good time to make a brief video about Chinese customs. Before I came to China, I read a lot of websites about like things you should and shouldn't do in China, and I've found that after living here for 3 years, a lot of the stuff you read online is not true, and a lot of the stuff you read is actually not useful. It may be true, but it's not really helpful. So this video is really just going to give you a rundown of some things about Chinese culture that you should be aware of, and should observe when you live here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the rules around eating out with friends, work colleagues, potential business associates. So the first thing is that if someone invites you to dinner in China or to lunch, in general, that means that they intend to pay. And so likewise, if you invite someone out to dinner or to lunch, or a number of people out for any occasion, it is expected that you are going to pay for that meal. So keep that in mind. It's something that can cause a bit of confusion when you ask your friend out to dinner and you're thinking, you're going to split the check. You can do that, and as a foreigner, they may say to you, they may say in their head, he doesn't understand our customs, but it would be so much better if you understand that when your friend invites you to dinner, he or she expects to pay. When you're invited to dinner, they expect they're going to pay. So, among the younger generation, I would say that people under the age of 30, going Dutch among close friends is much more common, and I would generally feel out their attitude as you get to know them. But the first time you invite someone out to dinner, or you're invited out to dinner, understand the payment rules there, and you're going to go a long way to cementing a friendship in China. The other piece there is it's very, very common. You'll read this online all the time. It's very, very common traditionally in Chinese culture to argue over the check. So even if I invite you out to dinner, the check comes, I grab the check to go pay it. It's expected that you, as my guest, are going to say, no, I insist I pay, and there'll be a little bit of a back and forth argument. You should put up a little bit of resistance if you're invited out to dinner and make the offer to pay. But in the end, let your host pay. It would be extremely rude if I invited you out to dinner, and I was Chinese, and I cared, and then you won the fight about paying, like you grab the check and run up and pay. That would actually be extremely insulting. So you should make a bit of a show of wanting to pay, but then ultimately let the person who invited you out to dinner pay. And likewise, if you invite someone out and they start making a fuss about paying, you're the foreigner, I'm going to pay, you can't pay. Stick to your guns and pay. This can get comical. I've sometimes run up, go to the bathroom, but I'll actually be paying the check. So keep that in mind. So if you read that online, it is true. It's a bit of a dance that you should be engaged in with the other people at the table. But again, once you become good friends with someone, you could say, hey, let's go out to dinner, and we'll split the check or whatever, and you can feeling that out again depending on their age and how well they adhere to traditional Chinese custom. All right, so at a dinner, this is one of the things that I think a lot of foreigners find confusing and frustrating, is the rules around toasting in China are extremely complex, and I don't pretend to know them. And again, this usually applies to older folks, but younger folks as well will engage in this practice. So if you go to dinner with 5 or 6 people and there's alcohol being served, or even not being served, some people are drinking alcohol, other people are drinking tea or water, toasts are extremely common. And in fact, before you take a sip of alcohol, you should find someone at the table to toast. You can toast several people. You don't necessarily have to say much, although Chinese people will tend to make some sort of short, brief speech or something to your health or whatever. But You should find someone, make eye contact as you reach for your alcohol, and then raise that glass and make a toast. By the end of the evening, you should have made sure that you've made the rounds and that you've had a one-on-one toast with every person at the table during that dinner. That's very, very common. And again, as a foreigner, you get a bit of a pass if you don't do that, if you just sort of sip your alcohol. But it's much more impressive if you follow Chinese custom, and people will be like, wow, he really understands. Now, again, Western toasting culture is very different. We tend to have a toast at the beginning of the evening. Hey, here's to a great week of work. They raise their glasses, clinks their glasses, and just drinks whenever they want to. Starting off the evening with a toast when everyone has their drinks is pretty common. If you're the person who invited everyone to dinner, then that's probably your obligation. If not, someone else will take on that role, and then again, the toasting every time. Okay, so now, how do you toast? I happen to have a glass of beer here, although typically at a traditional Chinese dinner, you're not going to be drinking a big glass of beer like this. You're going to be drinking a small little thimbleful of harder liquor, usually baijiu, wine perhaps. The proper way to toast is to make sure you hold your glass with two hands and then go in for the toast. Now, if the person you're toasting, see, I have to drink this now, sorry. If the person you're toasting is your superior, meaning they're your boss, make sure your glass is lower than their glass. So as you go in for the toast, your glass should clink below the rim of their glass significantly. If they're younger or subordinate to you, then they're going to do that, and that's fine. If you're of the same rank, if you're colleagues or coworkers, then it becomes a contest of who can go lower. So realize that the person you're toasting is trying to get lower than you, and you can try to get lower than them and clink the glass low. And that's a sign of respect. So that's very common. I don't read about it too much online. I've never heard of it before I got here, but being lower than the other person is a sign of respect. And again, more traditional way of doing it is with two hands, especially with the small glasses. You can put one hand underneath the glass like so, and cheers. Ganbei means dry glass in Chinese. If you're drinking baijiu, the expectation is a small thimbleful glass of very hard Chinese alcohol. The expectation is you down it. Ganbei means dry glass, empty your glass, bottoms up. If you're drinking a big glass of beer or wine, people may still say ganbei. In my experience, they don't mean it. You can take a sip. We sort of joke, my Chinese friends and I will say, like, small cheers. We don't even drink the whole thing. So the very traditional Chinese drinking culture, you're going to find it among people who are definitely ages, I would say 30 and up or 40 and up. Older folks are definitely going to be really hardcore about this. Younger people will adopt more Western customs in a lot of cases, but either way, you should be aware of it. Some other things about dinner. Chinese food is always served family style. What you may be used to is that somebody, usually the host, will order a bunch of dishes. As a guest of honor, they may ask you what you want. They will talk to you a lot about the food. This is spicy, be careful. Do you like this? Do you like that? My recommendation is just take whatever people want to give you and say, sure, I'll try it, no problem, unless there's something you're allergic to. One of the things that I have noticed to be true is that in general, the oldest person, once the food's at the table or a few dishes have arrived and the toast has been given, usually you wait until the oldest person or the person, sort of the superior person at the dinner, has started to eat, or they will usually make a motion to begin eating. You shouldn't start eating your food until that happens. So if you happen to be the oldest person at the table, then they're waiting for you to do it, so go ahead. If your boss is at the table and he's younger than you, wait for him to say, let's eat, 吃饭, right? And then you can begin to take food. I read a lot about like serving chopsticks. I've never seen that happen. It is very polite to offer people food, to give people food, but you're usually taking from the food in the middle of the plate. It's certainly true what you read. Don't fish around in a communal dish with the chopsticks that have been in your mouth. what you touch is yours. Just grab it, take it, put it in your plate, and eat it. That's just sort of a general rule of etiquette. If you don't know how to use chopsticks, better learn. There's really not a lot of options for forks and knives here, and you kind of do really feed into a stereotype. You're making things tough for me when you come to China and you say, "Do you have a fork?" Or they hand you a fork. "Oh, get a fork." Just learn to use chopsticks. Quite, as you say in Chinese, chopsticks. Learn how to use them. Practice at home. Go to a lot of Chinese restaurants. Okay, so I think that handles the basics of dinner. You're going to read stuff about the chopsticks in the bowl, face up. It means it's the incense. I mentioned that to my wife once, and she laughed, because what are you talking about? Like, that's not, at least in Sichuan where I live, that's not a thing. You shouldn't, they say don't beat on your bowl with the chopsticks. I've never seen anybody do that. Don't do that. And it is okay, as you'll read, to sort of like, if you have something in your mouth, it's okay to just reach in your mouth and pull bone out. You're going to find that a lot of the food in China, it's a small piece of meat on a bone, and Chinese people will generally eat that with chopsticks. You're going to find that to be very challenging, so it's okay if you have to touch the food with your hands, but in general, Chinese people don't do that, and if they do, they tend to wear gloves in a lot of cases, or definitely wash their hands beforehand, so it would be a good idea. It does seem sort of barbaric to grab that food. That doesn't seem polite, but if you've got to do it, you've got to do it. All right, so I think that covers food. Some other things that I think people run into on a daily basis, the gift giving in Chinese culture is pretty common. So people will give you gifts for, if they've been away, traveling, they'll have brought you a little something back. With your friends, you should reciprocate. So if you go on a little trip, if you go home to America or to England or to wherever, buy little things for your friends and your business associates and give them those gifts. When you give a gift or receive a gift, do it with two hands. That's seen as very polite. Other thing with gifts is do not, if they're wrapped, which they should be, or in a bag, don't open them. At that time, that is a very Western cultural tradition. It is not an Eastern cultural tradition. Japanese, Korean, Chinese, they do not. It's considered rude to open a gift in front of your guest. You'll read that online, and it's generally found it's true. Among close friends, very often the gift will not be wrapped, and it's like, hey, I want to show you this, and that's fine. If it's a wrapped gift or a hongbao, which is a red envelope with cash in it, do not open it until you leave the person's presence in the privacy of your own home. The other thing is you should politely refuse gifts. Oh, that's too much. Oh, no, you shouldn't have done that. Oh, no. Oh, no, please take it. Oh, okay, take. So again, always a little bit of refusal is very typical in Asian culture, and that's definitely true. So, in the same way that, when someone offers to pay for dinner, you refuse and offer to pay yourself, there should be a little bit of resistance, a few refusals of the gift, and then acceptance of the gift. To actually refuse a gift outright, like no, would be ridiculously rude. So just make a show of it. It's worth doing, and again, it gets you those social points that you need. One of the very, very important things that is something that we do in, I think, Western culture, but it's far more informal, is the idea of reciprocity. And this is a anthropological phenomenon that's known throughout the world, which is when someone does something, we give gifts to people, we may think it's like, oh, because we like them. No, we're doing that to cement bonds and to cement relationships, even if we're not conscious of it. Western culture tends to be very indirect about this, so we tend to say things, we tend not to like this aspect of gift giving, but reciprocation and all these things, like, for example, giving a gift, it's expected that that person will give you a gift at some other point. That's important. So expect that. If someone gives you a gift, the expectation is that you will give them a gift at some point as well. If someone invites you to dinner, it is important that you then invite them to dinner. and this is easy to neglect. I think in Chinese culture, people really do keep very careful, most people keep very careful track of who is paid for dinner, and really make efforts to make sure that there is that reciprocity in terms of gift giving and invitations to dinner. So yeah, keep that in mind. The last thing I want to mention is, this is worth mentioning, is birthday parties in China. Strange custom compared to most people in the West. People will not take you out for your birthday. You will take them out for your birthday. Also, any good events that happen to you. So, for example, when I got my driver's license in China, I posted it on social media, WeChat here, and everybody in Chinese wrote "xin ke, xin ke," right? "Xin ke, xin ke," and I knew that meant treat, treat. And I asked my wife and my Chinese teacher, "What does that mean?" And the expectation is that you got your driver's license. That's a great event, worthy of celebration. You need to take everybody out. So I actually took out all of my close Chinese friends and family to a big barbecue, and it wound up costing me probably close to 1,000 RMB. But that's the expectation. Something good happens for you, you treat. So you get a new job, you get a promotion at work. If you're going to make a big deal about it, if you're going to announce it, then you better plan on taking everybody out to dinner to celebrate your newfound wealth or your new freedom with a driver's license, whatever it may be. So likewise, birthday parties. There's a rule about which birthday parties are big ones. But if it is your birthday and you want to have a birthday party, throw it yourself. Invite your friends to your birthday and pay for everything. Now, again, China is a rapidly changing country. This is a country that is in flux culturally. And so a lot of these things don't always apply within all social groups. And in fact, some social groups, especially younger folks, may purposefully fly in the face of these traditions. However, a lot of the stuff you read on the internet, I find, is not accurate anymore, except in very, very formal business settings. For example, the way people are taught to introduce themselves, what is your honorable name? We'll do the Chinese. Nobody does that outside of business. Friends don't greet each other that way. People you meet, it's nice to meet you. I'm happy to meet you. That's fine. But a lot of the formal things that you may be taught in an introductory Chinese book or class are simply not used with great frequency. When I see friends that I haven't seen in a while, I might say "Hao zhou bu jian," which means long time no see. I might say "Ni zhe me yang?" How have you been? I might say "Hi," which is a very very common modern Chinese greeting is "Hi" or "Hello," and "Bye," bye-bye, B-A-I, bye-bye. People don't say "zaijian" too much anymore. So again, China's a changing country, a changing culture with Western ideas percolating into the traditional Chinese society. So I hope that helps navigate some of the arcane stuff you will find on the internet about Chinese customs that, again, I found simply aren't true. So enjoy, and as always, thanks for watching. Check back in this space for more videos about life in China and how to live and survive here. Thanks very much. Don't forget, if you liked what you saw, subscribe to my channel. If you're interested in more videos in this series, right up here. If you'd like to take a look at my physical anthropology class, learn all about human evolution, should be popping up right there, and random videos about my life in China and things that I film right up there. As always, thank you for watching, and hope to see you back.